Harper Sloan accepted the strangest job of her career on a warm New Orleans night. Pretend to love the city's most feared mafia boss until midnight, collect her money, and never see him again. She was already managing an extravagant charity masquerade on the rooftop of a historic French Quarter hotel when the offer reached her. Below, black cars lined the street. Above, chandeliers glowed over rooftop gardens while jazz drifted through the warm air. Guests in designer masks moved between fountains, candlelit tables, and balconies overlooking the distant lights along the Mississippi River. Harper should have been enjoying the success. Instead, she was calculating how many weeks remained before her event company stopped making payroll. Several major clients had canceled unexpectedly that season. One strong contract could save her employees. One bad month could end everything. The hotel belonged to Rainer-controlled investments. That was how Harper first came face to face with Maddox Rainer. She had heard the rumors. At 35, Maddox controlled businesses across New Orleans while carrying the reputation of a man nobody challenged twice. He was young for that kind of power, broad-shouldered and muscular, with dark tattoos visible across his hands and wrists. He did not need to raise his voice to control a room. Harper learned quickly that he had a problem. The evening's most powerful guests expected Maddox to confirm a long-discussed marriage alliance with Celia Shaw. A Rainer-Shaw union would secure valuable Gulf Coast interests. Maddox wanted no part of it. Rejecting the arrangement without another explanation, however, would publicly humiliate Celia's brother, Camden Shaw. So Maddox needed something convincing. An existing fiancé. Harper was offered enough money to stabilize her company if she played the role until the gala ended. The arrangement sounded ridiculous. It also sounded temporary. No intimacy. No permanent commitment. Just one night beside Maddox, one ring and one believable performance. Harper accepted. Minutes later, an expensive diamond rested on her finger. Maddox brought her into the center of the gala. Harper expected powerful guests to see through them. Instead, her refusal to appear intimidated made the lie believable. Celia looked almost relieved. Camden did not. He watched Harper with the cold attention of someone memorizing a future problem. Then Maddox went further than Harper expected. Before the entire room, he publicly presented her as the woman he intended to marry. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Harper understood then that she had not simply agreed to pretend affection. She had just disrupted an alliance between dangerous families. Still, she finished the night. Midnight arrived. Harper expected the performance to end. Maddox never asked for the ring back. When she finally prepared to leave, Nash Calder quietly informed her that photographers had surrounded the hotel. Then came the detail that changed everything. Maddox had booked Harper a room upstairs for the entire week, under the name of his fiancée. By sunrise, Harper understood that the engagement had never been designed to last only one night. Photographs from the gala were already everywhere. Images of Maddox placing the ring on her finger had spread through New Orleans society pages, private business circles, and the network surrounding both the Rainer and Shaw families. Walking away now would not simply end a performance. It would expose Maddox's announcement as a lie. Worse, Camden Shaw had already interpreted the engagement as a deliberate rejection of the alliance his family expected. Harper learned all of this inside Maddox's Garden District mansion. The property was beautiful enough to hide its danger. Historic architecture surrounded bright courtyards filled with magnolia trees, iron balconies, stone fountains, and carefully maintained gardens. Security remained discreet, but Harper noticed cameras, controlled entrances, and men who never seemed to stand anywhere by accident. She expected Maddox to release her after breakfast. He did not. Instead, she learned the truth. He had always expected the engagement to remain believable for several days. He had simply not told her because he assumed she would refuse. Whatever fragile trust existed between them disappeared immediately. Maddox did not physically stop her from leaving. Harper could walk through the front gate whenever she wanted. But he had already created consequences around that choice. Camden's people knew her name. They knew where she lived. They knew where her company operated. And now the entire city believed she mattered personally to Maddox Rainer. Leaving would not magically make those facts disappear. That realization made Harper furious. Maddox offered more money. Then protection. She rejected both as automatic solutions. If the performance continued, Harper decided the agreement would no longer belong entirely to him. She demanded control over her schedule. Her employees would remain completely outside Rainer business. His security could not interfere with her company without permission. And no public statement involving her name could be made unless she approved it first. Maddox surprised everyone by agreeing. Even Nash Calder looked unsettled by how much control his boss surrendered. That was the first moment Harper changed the rules inside Maddox's own house. Later that morning, she met Lena Rainer, Maddox's younger sister. Lena seemed less interested in the ring than in Harper's refusal to act impressed by the family name. Outside the mansion, Camden began applying pressure against Rainer businesses almost immediately. The engagement was no longer a romantic performance. It had become a political declaration. Harper then learned that a major Rainer-Shaw meeting was scheduled in 5 days. Until then, Maddox needed everyone to believe the engagement was real. Harper agreed to stay. Not because he had bought her loyalty. Because leaving immediately could place her employees in the middle of a conflict they never chose. Maddox had expected money and protection to keep her beside him. Instead, he became fascinated by the fact that she stayed only after forcing him to surrender control. Then his phone received a message from Camden. Attached was a photograph of Harper's apartment, taken from across the street. Within 48 hours, Harper stopped looking like a frightened outsider. She started becoming a problem for people who expected Maddox Rainer's fiancée to stay decorative and silent. After Camden's photograph of her apartment, security around Harper increased immediately. But she refused to hide inside Maddox's mansion. Her company still needed her, and she would not let one fake engagement erase the career she had built before meeting him. Maddox accompanied her to Rainer's Riverfront Hotel headquarters because their public story now required them to be seen together. The building overlooked the Mississippi through towering glass walls, blending restored brick architecture with a bright modern atrium. Paddleboats moved along the river outside while staff hurried through polished hospitality spaces preparing for another major charity event. For the first time, Harper watched Maddox inside one of his legitimate businesses. He was demanding, but not reckless. He expected precision, noticed mistakes quickly, and rarely needed to repeat an instruction. What bothered Harper was the fear surrounding him. Employees straightened when he entered. Managers watched his expression before speaking. Harper behaved differently. She treated servers, coordinators, cleaners, executives, and vendors with the same level of attention. Maddox noticed. So did Lena. During preparations, Harper identified several scheduling conflicts and security bottlenecks senior managers had missed. Her corrections saved hours of work. Lena's respect shifted from curiosity to something more professional. August Rainer remained unimpressed. He believed Harper's presence made Maddox look emotionally compromised. In his view, the easiest solution was still ending the performance and repairing the Shaw alliance. Then Harper learned something that changed the entire conflict. Celia Shaw had never wanted to marry Maddox either. The proposed marriage was not about romance. It was about Camden controlling territory, investments, and loyalty through his sister. That realization unexpectedly aligned Harper with Maddox. Both of them understood what it felt like to have someone else decide that strategy mattered more than consent. Their public performance became easier after that. They stood closer without calculating every movement. Their expressions around each other looked less rehearsed. Privately, the tension remained. Maddox was not used to being challenged. Harper was not used to seeing moments of restraint beneath the reputation surrounding him. Attraction began growing in the space between those contradictions. Harper also discovered that Maddox had blocked several profitable ventures because they relied on more violent criminal operations. Those decisions had created resentment among older Rainer loyalists. The fake engagement had arrived during a struggle that already existed. Camden's anger could easily strengthen people who wanted Maddox weakened from within. Harper understood the danger without turning it into another mystery. The real battle was still about power, reputation, and whether Maddox would be forced back into an alliance he rejected. That weekend, Harper was expected at the Rainer family's Bayou estate. If she stayed away, the engagement would immediately look false. Minutes before departure, Lena delivered one final complication. Camden Shaw had accepted an invitation to the same gathering. Harper arrived at the Rainer family's Bayou estate expecting another performance. Instead, she realized Camden Shaw had come to force Maddox to choose between his empire and the woman everyone believed he loved. The estate sat deep among cypress trees and still black water, reached by a narrow road that disappeared beneath hanging Spanish moss. Wooden docks stretched into the bayou, lanterns glowed along wide verandas, and distant thunder rolled beyond the elegant lodge. It was beautiful, and built for negotiations nobody wanted overheard. Maddox's senior allies were already there. August, Lena, Celia, several powerful business figures, and Camden. Harper immediately noticed that Celia showed no resentment toward her. If anything, relief softened her expression. The arranged marriage had trapped Celia too. That left Camden as the real source of hostility. He never threatened Harper openly. He used something more calculated. He made her background obvious. No inherited fortune. No criminal family. No powerful surname. Just an event producer wearing a ring everyone in the room knew could change alliances. Harper refused to compete on his terms. She did not pretend to have status she lacked. Her composure impressed several neutral guests more than Camden's attempts to embarrass her. Maddox noticed. Soon his instinct to defend Harper changed. He was no longer protecting a hired actress. He was becoming angry that anyone treated her as disposable. Then Camden presented the real purpose of the weekend. Maddox could publicly end the engagement and restore the Shaw alliance. Or he could lose access to valuable Gulf Coast routes and investments. August urged him to accept. Harper privately believed he should. Whatever existed between them had started as fiction. Destroying an empire for that seemed irrational. Maddox refused. The decision shook her more than she expected. Outside, the approaching thunderstorm finally broke. Rain hammered the wooden roof, lightning flashed over the water, and flooded roads temporarily isolated everyone inside the estate. For the first time, Harper and Maddox found themselves away from cameras and political theater. She learned that Maddox's father had treated marriage like another business contract. Alliances came before affection. People became pieces on a board. Maddox had promised himself he would never live that way. Harper saw the contradiction immediately. His fake engagement had begun as an attempt to escape control. Yet he had manipulated her into it by hiding the truth. That realization landed harder than Camden's threats. Maddox could not reject his father's rules while simply inventing new ones for Harper. Something shifted between them after that. The attraction remained. But now it carried the possibility of trust. Then August destroyed it. He approached Harper privately with a file. Her name was printed across the front. Inside were details about her company, finances, history, and reputation. The date on the cover was 3 weeks before the masquerade gala. Maddox had known exactly who Harper was long before she ever agreed to play his fiancée. Harper could forgive a dangerous man for having enemies. What she could not easily forgive was discovering that even their supposedly accidental first meeting had been planned. The file August gave her was far more detailed than she expected. It contained information about her event company, financial problems, professional history, family background, and reputation with clients. Maddox had researched her weeks before the masquerade gala. He had chosen her deliberately. She had no criminal connections. She was polished enough to survive a room filled with powerful families. Her work at the Rainer Hotel gave them a believable reason to have crossed paths. But one detail mattered most. Harper had a reputation for refusing wealthy clients who mistreated employees. Maddox believed that made her credible. People would assume a woman like Harper could not simply be purchased. The irony was brutal. He had purchased her participation anyway. Harper realized he had manipulated the exact independence he now claimed to admire. Maddox did not deny any of it. His original plan had been strategic from beginning to end. Harper would pretend to be his fiancée for several days, destroy expectations of a Shaw marriage, collect enough money to stabilize her company, and disappear from his life. He had never expected her opinion of him to matter. That explanation changed nothing. Unexpected feelings did not erase calculated deception. Harper ended the arrangement. August immediately objected. The final Rainer-Shaw decision was only days away, and a public breakup would make Maddox appear dishonest and politically weakened. Several advisors expected Maddox to stop Harper. He did not. That became the first real proof that something inside him had changed. Nash returned Harper safely to New Orleans, then withdrew the security presence she had never requested. No guards remained outside her apartment. No Rainer vehicle followed her. Harper returned to her event company feeling something she had wanted since the beginning: freedom. It hurt more than she expected. Maddox publicly accepted responsibility for the failed engagement instead of blaming her. The political damage came quickly. Camden claimed the relationship had been fabricated because Maddox feared the Shaw alliance. Neutral business partners began withdrawing from Rainer deals. August again pressured Maddox to reconsider Celia. Maddox refused. Celia refused too. Harper began seeing something important from a distance. Maddox's changed behavior continued even when she was no longer there to witness it. Then Camden's pressure reached her. Several New Orleans venues suddenly canceled contracts with Harper's company. She knew exactly why. Maddox still did not interfere. He did not send money. He did not use protection as an excuse to pull her back into his world. Harper had demanded proof he could let her leave. Now she had it. And she hated how empty victory felt. Then Lena sent Harper one final piece of information. The Rainer-Shaw decision would take place aboard a neutral vessel on the Mississippi River. Without Harper there, Camden was expected to win. Maddox finally gave Harper exactly what she had demanded: complete freedom. No Rainer guards stood outside her apartment. No black car followed her to work. No message arrived asking when she planned to return. For the first time since the masquerade, Harper's life belonged entirely to her again. That should have felt like victory. Instead, the silence forced her to confront a harder question. Did she actually want to stay away? Her event studio continued struggling as Camden's pressure spread through New Orleans. Venues canceled. Vendors became cautious. Clients suddenly postponed decisions. Harper refused every suggestion that Rainer money should quietly repair the damage. If her company survived, it would survive without becoming another extension of Maddox's power. Lena visited only in a legitimate business capacity. Through her, Harper learned what was happening inside the Rainer organization. August and several older allies were prepared to challenge Maddox's leadership if the Shaw agreement collapsed. Camden wanted control over key riverfront holdings. Maddox could stop much of the damage with one simple move. He could claim Harper had deceived him. He could make the fake engagement her scandal instead of his. He refused. For the first time, Harper understood what protection looked like without possession. Maddox was losing influence to protect her reputation, yet he was not using that sacrifice to drag her back. Then Celia Shaw publicly distanced herself from the marriage alliance. Camden responded by tightening control around his own sister. The pattern was painfully familiar. Powerful men kept deciding that strategy gave them permission to control everyone around them. Harper had experienced it with Maddox. Celia was experiencing it with Camden. That gave Harper a reason to act that had nothing to do with romance. Her name had been used to build the lie. Now it was being used to destroy Maddox. She wanted it back. Harper decided to attend the Mississippi River Summit. Not as Maddox's fiancée. Not as a woman returning because she missed him. As herself. She prepared without contacting him. The original engagement ring remained behind. Nash learned of her decision only hours before the meeting and, surprisingly, made no attempt to stop her. That evening, Harper reached the New Orleans riverfront. A restored luxury riverboat waited beneath bright deck lights, its polished railings reflecting across the dark Mississippi. Powerful figures were already boarding. Then Maddox saw her. His expression carried no triumph, only concern. Because this time Harper had stepped into danger without being paid, pressured, or manipulated. She walked aboard without taking his arm. The first time she stood beside Maddox, money had put her there. The second time, nothing guaranteed she would remain except her own choice. The riverboat pulled away from the dock. Then Camden Shaw stood before the gathering with a document in his hand. He had obtained Harper and Maddox's original one-night contract. Camden believed exposing the contract would destroy Maddox. Harper realized it could only destroy them if she was still afraid of the truth. The restored riverboat moved steadily along the Mississippi as New Orleans faded behind them. Illuminated decks reflected across black water, brass interiors glowed beneath warm lights, and live jazz drifted up from the lower level while storm clouds gathered in the distance. Inside the private salon, Senior Rainer and Shaw stakeholders waited. Camden placed the original contract before them. Proved everything. Harper had been paid to pretend she was Maddox Rainer's fiancée. The room expected denial. Harper gave them none. She accepted that the engagement had begun as a performance. She also refused to protect Maddox from the rest of the truth. He had manipulated the agreement. He had known the lie needed to last longer than one night and deliberately withheld that information because he expected Harper to refuse. Maddox did not interrupt her. He accepted responsibility. That stunned the old guard more than any carefully constructed excuse could have. Camden immediately used the admission to argue that Maddox had become emotionally compromised and unfit to lead. August initially supported him. Then Celia stepped forward. Her refusal to continue pretending changed the balance. She made it clear that she had never wanted the proposed marriage either. Suddenly, the Rainer-Shaw alliance looked less like a powerful partnership and more like what it had always been. Two people being traded for strategy. Harper refused to let herself or Celia remain symbols in someone else's arrangement. Camden gave Maddox one final path back to power. Publicly abandon Harper. Restore negotiations with the Shaws. Keep the profitable Gulf Coast routes. Maddox refused. Instead, he surrendered the disputed holdings. Money, territory, influence. All of it mattered less than becoming the same kind of man he had spent years trying not to become. Several legitimate business partners shifted toward Lena and Maddox. Camden's leverage weakened because the Rainer organization no longer depended completely on the criminal routes he controlled. August finally saw what was happening. The old system was collapsing. Harper saw something else. Maddox was not choosing her as a possession. He was choosing the principle that nobody should be forced into a role simply because power demanded it. When the summit ended, he did not ask Harper to restore the engagement. He returned the ring instead. The last object belonging to the lie. Harper looked at it, then left it in his hand. The fake engagement was over. The riverboat turned toward New Orleans. For the first time since meeting Maddox, Harper owed him nothing. No contract. No performance. No political loyalty. Maddox had finally removed every reason she had to stay. Except the one neither of them had admitted aloud. Harper once feared Maddox because he changed the rules without asking her. Months later, she understood that the only future she wanted with him was one where neither of them controlled the rules alone. The Rainer-Shaw alliance never recovered after the riverboat summit. Camden lost influence as legitimate partners shifted toward Lena's expanding hospitality and real estate network. Celia built a life outside the marriage arrangement her brother had tried to force on her. August lost much of his authority inside the Rainer organization. Maddox remained powerful, but he began reducing his dependence on businesses and alliances built through coercion. Harper changed too. Her event company recovered. Lena became one of her legitimate clients, but Harper kept her finances completely separate from Maddox. Nothing between them became romantic overnight. Trust did not work that way. Maddox visited only when Harper wanted him there. He stopped using security to watch problems she had not asked him to solve. He stopped offering money every time something went wrong. Most importantly, he stopped assuming that caring about Harper gave him the right to make decisions for her. Harper slowly realized his restraint was not temporary. Maddox was learning something far more difficult than control. He was learning uncertainty. Loving Harper meant accepting that she could leave tomorrow. And staying anyway. Their relationship developed through ordinary moments instead of political performances. Eventually, Harper accepted a real date. No photographers. No engagement announcement. No contract waiting afterward. Several months after the original masquerade, Harper's company produced another charity event at the same historic rooftop hotel where everything had begun. The setting looked almost unchanged. French Quarter lights glowed below. Music drifted across rooftop gardens. The Mississippi reflected the city in the distance. Elegant guests moved beneath chandeliers in the warm New Orleans air. But Harper was different. This time she stood there as the event producer. Not Maddox Rainer's hired fiancée. Maddox attended quietly. He made no announcement about their relationship. Later, when the crowd thinned, he gave Harper the old engagement ring. But he did not place it on her finger. The large stone had been removed. The empty setting represented the role and contract they had destroyed. The diamond rested separately inside a small case. The meaning was clear. If Harper ever chose a real engagement, they would build it from nothing. Together. Harper did not rush toward marriage. She chose something more important first. The relationship. Their love only became real after the performance finally ended. Maddox once believed the way to keep Harper was to make leaving difficult. In the end, he learned the opposite. The only way she could truly stay was if she remained completely free to go. As the gala ended, Nash approached Maddox with a photograph taken only hours earlier. It showed Camden Shaw meeting secretly with August Rainer.